verse, and that is the perfect song to lead into the passage that we're going to spend just a few minutes looking at this morning. And I'm going to try and keep it pithy because I know we've got a potluck after this, so we've got some great food in the kitchen ready to eat on the other side. But to start off, I want to just read through the passage we're going to look at real quick together. It's going to be in Luke chapter 12. If you'd like to follow along, it'll be on the screen or in your Bible starting in verse 32. We're going to go ahead and read through verse 40. Then we'll come back and comb through one verse at a time. Listen to what Jesus says in this passage. Do not be afraid, little flock, for it is the Father's good pleasure to give you the kingdom. Sell your possessions and give alms. Make purses for yourselves that do not wear out, an unfailing treasure in heaven, where no thief comes near and no moth destroys. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. Be dressed for action, and have your lamps lit. Be like those who are waiting for their master to return from the wedding banquet, so that they may open the door for him as soon as he comes and knocks. Blessed are those slaves whom the master finds alert when he comes. Truly, I tell you, he will fasten his belt and have them sit down to eat, and he will come and serve them. And if he comes during the middle of the night or near dawn and finds them so, blessed are these slaves. But know this, verse 39. If the owner of the house had known at what hour the thief was coming, he would not have let his house be broken into. You must also be ready, for the Son of Man is coming at an unexpected hour. A lot in that passage to unpack. The very first words, do not be afraid, are kind of strange because the things that we're afraid of, the things that we worry about in life, can range all across the board. For instance, this previous Valentine's Day on February 14th, my wife and I spent about 2 hours trying to figure out what the rattling sound was coming from inside of our wall next to the chimney. Now, our dogs were very keen to this rattling sound. We didn't know if it was a squirrel, if it was a ghost, if it was something else. Turns out it was a ghost. No, I'm kidding. It was a bird. But there was a bird stuck in our attic. And so we went through this problem-solving process of how do we get this bird stuck, not out in our attic, sorry, in our chimney, in our wall. How do we get this bird out of here without letting it immediately become the snack of 3 gigantic dogs? And so we went through the process of we chipped away some concrete, and I've actually got a little video to show you. This hopefully will bring a little bit of life to it. This was the end result after we had to shuttle our dogs outside so that they wouldn't, as mentioned, eat this bird. I don't know if you can see very well, but he was stuck in there. We drilled a hole so that he could burrow himself out, and eventually, like a high diver, he made his patient pose and then wait for it, dips right out, and flew out our open door. And our problem was solved. And that was one of 3 times that's happened now, where we've had birds stuck in our wall that we've had to repeatedly assist to get out. And the things, there's probably a larger issue to be addressed there, but what I'm getting at is the things we worry about in life, they range all over the map in ways that are sometimes silly. We laugh, but we live anxious lives. We worry about things that creak or things that don't creak but maybe should. or our money, or our jobs, or our homes, or a weird noise that our car made on the way here this morning. We worry about all sorts of stuff. And then right in the middle of it, Jesus tells us, do not be afraid, little flock. For it is your Father's good pleasure to give you the kingdom. Now, I don't know about you, but oftentimes if someone tells me, do not be afraid, that loosely translated is meaning something really scary is coming. And so you need to prepare yourself accordingly. And so when Jesus says this, it can be a little disheveling until you notice the tone that he's speaking with. Observe the gentleness in which Jesus approaches this interaction in this particular teaching. He doesn't shout it. He doesn't command it. This is a whispered teaching. Do not be afraid, little flock. Little flock. It's almost like embarrassing how tender that is to the Spirit. He doesn't call us warriors. Jesus doesn't even call us workers. He calls us sheep. Which means three things in particular. We're small, we wonder, and quite frankly, we are not good at defending ourselves. And he still tells us, do not be afraid. Why? The very next sentence. For it is your Father's good pleasure to give you the kingdom. It's not his reluctant obligation. It's not a distant duty. He delights in offering us the kingdom. I think many of us walk through life kind of carrying around a proverbial 40-pound backpack worth of worry on our back. And maybe the first tip for you this morning as it pertains to this teaching in particular isn't to go home and do something. Maybe it's to go home and release something. The first tip today is just set the baggage down. Jesus reminds us, it's not you carrying the kingdom anyway. This is my job. And so maybe your first step this week is releasing something. Then Jesus goes on and he says, sell your possessions and give alms. And all of a sudden this turns from like a, do not be afraid, your Father's going to give you the kingdom, now get rid of your stuff. It went from a comforting message to a less comforting message. He's now telling me to rid myself of these things. But Jesus' teachings, though always gentle and oftentimes sweet, he never sugarcoats the truth. In other words, he comforts us and then he moves us. And this movement isn't rooted in guilt or obligation, it's based in freedom. Jesus tells us where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. Which begs the question, where is your heart living today? This morning? As you go home this afternoon? Is it in your checking account? In your resume? In your house? Jesus isn't trying to ruin our lives with this teaching. He's trying to rescue us from the slaves that we've become to our stuff. So practical tip number 2 that I would say is try what I call the 2-box exercise. Maybe when you get home today, make 2 boxes and just, in one of them, write down what truly matters. Your faith, your relationships, your love, eternity, God, all these things. In one box, put them there. And on the other box, write down all the things that you spend your time worrying about. Money, the job, the status, what that person thinks. And then step back, and once you've got those boxes filled out, ask yourself the simple question, Which box gets most of your energy? Where are you putting your resources? Jesus tells us to be dressed for action and have our lamps lit. This is literally a call to go, if it were workers, to go gird your loins, put on your robe, grab your mop, get ready to do your job, and be on watch. But then comes a twist. Jesus goes and he tells us this story about a master coming back home. And notice what it says the master does in verse 37. Blessed are those slaves whom the master finds alert when he comes. So the master comes back, the slaves are alert. Truly, I tell you, he, the master, will fasten his belt and have them, the slaves, sit down to eat. And he will come and serve them. The master comes to serve the slaves. And in this moment, Jesus turns the paradigm on its head. This is an upside-down world where the slaves are being served by their master. But this is Jesus telling us, when I return, I'm the one coming to bless you, to feed you, to honor you. He turns the whole thing upside down. And one of my favorite Fred Craddock quotes is simply, grace always outruns duty. I'll say that again. Grace always outruns duty. Being ready doesn't mean being perfect. It means being alert. And there's a difference. Asking yourselves, am I paying attention to what Christ is doing in my life? That's an easy question. Maybe it's praying on your way to work. Or when you're in that stressful situation with a loved one. Or calling that friend that's been on your mind, that you've had the Spirit dropping it there for some reason. Are you paying attention to the presence of Christ in your everyday life? Being ready doesn't mean being rigid. Being ready doesn't mean being rigid. And so the next thing comes is that Jesus says this thing, if he comes during the middle of the night or near dawn and finds them so, blessed are those slaves. And this, for some people, is a cue to start predicting dates and times of when Jesus is going to come back. And you've seen these folks. They've got their charts, they've got their algorithms and their codes and their numbers about when and why this is how they figured it out. And what Jesus is saying is, no, it's an unexpected hour. One that you cannot figure out. There is no code to crack. It's not going to be that. Being ready isn't about predicting when Jesus comes back. It's about being present in that moment when he returns. Thomas Long puts it this way. He says, the return of Christ is not a date to be deciphered, but a call to be faithful in the meantime. The return of Christ is not a date to be deciphered, but a call to be faithful in the meantime. Let me put it this way. If you went home today and this afternoon a knock on your door came, and you opened it up, and on your step, like a divine DoorDash delivery driver, was standing Jesus Christ, would your instinct be to say, Jesus, we've been ready for you? Or would it be to say, hey, throw the dishes in the washer and get the clothes folded and put away. Jesus is here. We're not ready. This isn't to guilt you, and it's not to stress you out, but it is to remind you that the call to be ready isn't a frantic effort. And it's not about shame. It's about observation. And so the last tip I would give you is try to create a watchful rhythm. What I mean by that is just asking yourself a couple of questions as baselines at the end of each day. Where did I see Jesus? Go through and think through it. Reliving from the beginning to where you're at. And then the other question, where did I miss him? If you're willing to go through like an athlete would go look at game footage of their previous game to see what they did right and what they did wrong, I promise you, you'll start to see more and more as the Spirit reveals himself. But being watchful isn't a frantic effort, and it's not being rigid, being ready is not having a rigid stance. It's a quiet attentiveness. So here we are, a little flock with a big promise, and Jesus gives us a light in hand. This little light of mine, I'm going to let it shine. And he calls us to keep that lamp lit, ready, always prepared. Hide it under a bushel? No. Let Satan blow it out? No. Shine it all over the neighborhood. So this week, as you go into these next 7 days, may we be willing to live as watchful servants, with our hearts unburdened, our souls alert, with our hands open and our lamp shining. For the Master is not far. And when he comes, may he find you ready. And may you find him still serving.